Hey there, and welcome back to another She-Hulk video. And today we're going to be talking about episode 7, The Retreat, which chronicles Jen's journey to a spiritual wellness retreat run by Emil Blonsky. A place where she's able to come to terms with her inner She-Hulk and searches for her own spiritual harmony. But anyway, my main criticism so far with She-Hulk has been the lack of overall plot development and the lack of story threads that create a true central narrative. There are those smaller threads that you see slowly weaving away in the background, the weird incel people online, her new boyfriend, etc., but nothing that's quite as overarching as the stories in all the other MCU Disney Plus shows. And I get that it's a sitcom format, but I still think it needs that more central narrative focus to go along with that, especially since it feels like they push all these other side characters forward and give them fun stories and moments. But by highlighting these characters so much, they kind of leave Jen underdeveloped and kind of boring. So hopefully that's something they're able to address in these last couple of episodes, but we'll see. And so with all that being said, let's jump into the video. So we start off the episode with a pretty decently long montage of Jen falling in love with this guy that she met at the wedding from last episode, Josh. We have texting and pining and awkward yet cute dates, going to food trucks, sending cute and quirky ideas to each other via text whilst at work, awkward almost kisses at the door of her apartment, going to drive-in movies, even more texting, and then of course, they sleep together. This whole thing had the look and feel of a rom-com from like the mid-2000s. This scene was so very deeply nostalgic and really well shot. It had a great soundtrack as well and was well edited, so just a really strong opening scene. And then she wakes up and surprise, surprise, he's gone. She texts him, no reply. And yeah, instantly it's pretty clear to me that she's getting ghosted. My immediate thought being, okay, he's either a villain, or he simply wants the clout of having banged a superhero, and now has the proof to show the boys. Anyway, Jen then goes through the torment of having to wait for a response to her awkward post-sex text, a response that does not come. She sits through work all of that Friday, nothing. She gets to Saturday, still nothing. She sits by that phone, waiting for a text that's never going to come. She does yoga, the phone's still there. She's eating, the phone's still there. She's watching the Muppets, and the phone is still there. And nothing. No texts, no calls, completely ghosted. And then Sunday rolls around and there's no change, but she does get a phone call from Emil Blonsky's parole officer telling her that his inhibitors malfunction, so there's a chance that he's turned into Abomination. And thus, this guy wants her to come out with him to the ranch just to check on him, in case he gets mauled. And yeah, fair enough. If you have a superpowered helper on hand, may as well take advantage of that fact to avoid getting your head smashed in. And so they go out there, and whilst at first Emil's excuse of getting a shock from an electric fence chasing a chicken sounds like it's quite obviously bullshit, at the same time, I kind of think the whole point of this episode is that his life is actually this ridiculous. And even though his persona and his reform seem so ridiculously fake, it's actually all completely genuine, and this is legitimately his life. And so after the check, the parole officer beats a hasty retreat and Blonsky walks Jen to her car, which is then destroyed by a brawling man-bull and Matador. A Matador with identity issues who thinks he's a swashbuckler. And yeah, her car's totaled, and she rightfully rages at the pair of them for destroying the car and finds herself stuck at Blonsky's spiritual retreat with no cell reception, slowly driven insane by the inability to check her texts and see if Josh has gotten back to her yet. And my god, how much money did his 7 soulmates have to fork out in order to afford this place? It's absolutely massive. Also, I really love Blonsky's character development. He's just so weird, so out there. And yet he also has all the banter going for him as well. Mocking Man-Bull for his weird mechanical bull joke and then clowning on Jen, tricking her into thinking she got a text back. He really has gone from a very deeply generic villain in the Hulk film to a massively unique character in this show. So, props to them if nothing else for that transformation. And this whole retreat itself is just, I don't know how to describe it. They have a ceremonial sweat yurt, used to integrate your past and present selves into one. So weird, but yet I love it. Also, side note, this is a prime setting for a horror-themed episode, out in the middle of nowhere, at a retreat run by a former supervillain with no phone reception or Wi-Fi. And of course, we the audience would also know that there are people out there that want her blood. Makes for an interesting idea. And in the context of this episode, I really did think it put me on the edge of my seat, because I wasn't sure if they were going to pull a fast one on me, and have them all be secretly villains. That this was all just a trap to lure her here. But anyway, In her quest for reception, she stumbles into a group therapy session run by Blonsky with the Matador, Man-Bull, Saracen, a supposed vampire, and Porcupine, a porcupine. And yeah, this whole scene was just a lot of fun. One of my big things with this show is that it hyper-emphasizes the side characters to the detriment of Jen, who often gets left behind in the dust. But here, I struggled to even care about that and was just along for the ride in the scene itself. It was genuinely fun and engaging. And each of the characters had their own little moments in the scene, their own time to shine. And then the thug that attacked her walks in and she beats him up a little. And then somehow, he draws her into the group therapy session. And we actually start to get some much needed Jen development. She learns to take down her walls and open up to others about what she's genuinely feeling. And so, after being called out by the group for mocking the process and not realizing she has her own issues that need to be worked on, she does open up to the group. She talks about how she met Josh at the wedding, how they had a few dates and it was all going really well until he suddenly ghosted her. And so they mock her for a post-coital text, telling her it was thirsty and a cliche. And they tell her that, yeah, she was very likely ghosted, which upsets her and causes her to open up even more, telling the fellas that she met him as Jen, and that he liked her for Jen, not for She-Hulk, not for having powers and being special, and thus, he made Jen feel validated, because usually, she doesn't feel that way as Jen. And of course, this in turn causes the fellas to swear revenge and try to ride out to kill Josh in quite hilarious fashion, and I just love the electric sword out of nowhere, only to be stopped by Blonsky and talked down from their rage, and instead redirected to give Jen love and support, a place to feel accepted and loved. And basically the gist of this whole scene was that she needs to move on from how people perceive her and whether they prefer her as Jen or as a Hulk. And instead she needs to look inward and answer the question of if she actually also prefers She-Hulk to Jen, and whether she's been neglecting herself in favour of this new cool alter ego that everybody adores and lets her live out her high school fantasies. And so, she turns back from She-Hulk into Jen, and it's all very wholesome and sweet. And she even gets Porcupine, one of her new friends, to remove his mask for what must be the first time in a long time, unleashing a god-awful stench into the room and causing everybody to gag. And so, Jen then deletes Josh's number and lets him go, and even goes into the ceremonial steaming yurt to cement this new mindset, before the repair truck arrives, and she's back off to the city as a changed woman. And then, as usual, as this show loves to do, we get our crammed-in last-second plot thread to continue building up the mysterious villain, the Reddit incels. And it's revealed that Josh had had sex with her as part of a creepy online plot, scanning her phone, taking a photo of her sleeping, and then, I guess, stealing her blood? Ugh, what a creep. The fellas were right, this guy's gotta die. And so that brings us to the end of the episode. And yeah, there wasn't a huge lot of plot development in this episode either, as you've seen. But unlike in some weeks where I found that to be a weakness, I actually found it to be a bit of a strength here. It allowed the episode time to breathe without cramming extra plot into it, and allowed us to see Jen shift into this new version of her character, moving a big part of her past self, not being able to reconcile the two halves of her life together, and struggling with the self-esteem issues that caused her. So yeah, whilst this season has been a bit frustrating to not really have much of an overarching plot, I do feel like this episode improved upon Jen's character so much, even if she was once again, outshone by the side characters. But anyway, with all that being said, these were just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.